Hi, it's Christy Hall, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really looking forward to sharing a little bit more with you about what I've talked with you about in my correspondence, which is the new economic world order for nonprofits. And I developed this framework because I, like you, have heard from hundreds of organizations, people like your grantees, who have said, you know, we are not sure how we're going to make it in the next 12 to 18 months, and we're not sure what strategies actually work with fundraising and development right now, and we're just uncertain. And I know that you've heard from your grantees that you're in this for the right reasons, that you actually want them to succeed, and so I want to help you do that. They need some capacity building tools right now. Unlike any other time in our lifetime have they needed these kinds of tools and this kind of support. So, and I also know you're balancing the needs or limitations of the foundation right now and the state of endowments and investments. So what I want to do is make it easy for you to support your grantees. And so I've developed this framework that I've mentioned before. And so I want to share with you a little bit more in depth what it's really about. You know, what are the kinds of things that I would be training and talking with your grantees about, and how would that actually help them? So there are a few points to this. The first thing we would do is talk about why this is a new economic world order. You know, what has changed? And I mean, obviously, there are certain things that we all go, well, of course, that, you know, we're in a different space now. But the rules are gone. What used to work doesn't work, or we don't know if it's going to work. And there's lots of uncertainty, but there are some things that that do work now. And so we'll talk about the context. What is the new economic world order for nonprofits? The second thing we'll do is talk about new strategies required. Fundraising in the new economic world order. We'll talk about individual giving, annual campaigns, what kind of tools work now, how to work within really tight budgets to reach people who want to support the organization. And we'll talk about new tools they can employ that cost almost nothing. I'm really big on looking at online tools that are right for the donor demographics. We'll also talk about corporate giving. There's a misconception that corporate giving is gone, and granted, it has gone down. There has been a reduction in corporate giving. At the same time, there are companies out there looking to partner with nonprofit organizations. So what are they looking for? Number one, they're looking for alignment. So they want to align themselves with organizations that reach the kind of market that they want to reach. And number two, they're looking for return on investment. So company sponsorships of large events that they have no idea how, you know, what their return is on that, those are gone. But you know, how do you look at something and say, okay, we can prove to this company that they actually would get a return on their investment by partnering with us? So we'll look at some of those specific strategies. I had the pleasure of being at the IEG conference in Chicago in March, and I heard from these companies that are continuing to sponsor organizations, and these are the kinds of strategies that I'll be sharing. And you know, this was just a couple of months ago, so this isn't like a year ago. These are the things that work now, which I really get excited about. You know, another thing we'll talk about is cultivation. So how do you reach the donors you already have, and how do you get them to take action? What's the process over 12 months that you would look at in terms of taking the donors you already have and upgrading them right now? Like, what works now? So those are the kinds of strategies we cover in the new strategies required in the new economic world order for nonprofits. The next piece we cover is understanding and motivating your team. Now, I say all the time that there's no way any organization can be successful at fundraising and development without a team. Usually, especially right now, that requires getting volunteers involved. And so how do you do that? How do you meet people where they are? And how do you understand how to meet their needs? And once you do that, your fundraising team can take things to a whole new level. And that's how you get results in the new economic world order. So we talk about some specific strategies that have worked for other organizations that I have personally worked with. The next piece is choices. What makes or breaks a nonprofit in the new economic world order? There are so many choices that will have to be made in the next 12 to 18 months that are going to decide the fate of many organizations. And so we'll talk about things like mindset, which to me is the number one deciding factor in which organizations will make it and which of them won't. And we'll also talk about your processes. What processes do you have in place that are serving you and which ones aren't? And how do you make that switch? How do you take things to a place where it's effective for your organization? We'll talk about people. Do you have innovators involved in your organization? And if you don't, how do you find those people and pull them in? And then we'll talk about courage. Yeah, courage. Because so many organizations, so many people, they're in this because they're passionate. They're in this because they want to make a difference. They're in this because it matters to them to contribute. And so they're also at a place where they're going, we're doing everything we know to do, and we don't know if it's going to be enough. And still, they are there. And so how can they find that courage within themselves to move forward? How can they really continue to make a difference? From that place, right? So we'll talk about courage. The next piece of the new economic world order for nonprofits framework is why implementation and accountability matter more now than ever. And a lot of people talk about accountability and implementation from a very theoretical standpoint. We'll definitely touch on that. But what matters even more when people want to get results is what are the practical things they can do. So I will give them a few steps that if they go back to their office when the phone is ringing, when the board members, when the donors, when the clients, when everyone is coming at them with emails and projects, how can they still implement and stay accountable so that they can get results? So we'll talk about some really practical strategies for that. The next piece in the framework is the art of celebration in the new economic world order. And there's some very specific ways that organizations can incorporate this culture of celebration in a very meaningful and appropriate way, considering the circumstances that we're in now, the environment that we're in. Celebration, in fact, is not dead. It is needed more now than ever. So we'll talk about that. And the final piece of the new economic world order for nonprofits framework are the 7 keystones of leadership in the new economic world order. And we'll talk specifically about what it takes to be a leader in this environment and how people can, on a really practical level, reach in and access that leadership that is probably already there. So we'll talk about things like awareness. We'll talk about things like playfulness and curiosity, commitment, focus. Those are some of the keystones of leadership that are required in this new economic world order. So that's just an overview of what I want to share with your grantees and how I want to help them get the tools they need to succeed now. And I know that you want them to succeed as well. So I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to talking with you soon.